Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Katie and today I am going to show you how to use a biscuit joiner. I have gotten a few requests from some of you to start doing some how to use power tools videos, and I realized that this is a super obscure choice to start with, but I just got this guy and I'm really excited about him. So just keep watching and I will tell you all about biscuit joiners. What does a biscuit joiner do? Great question. The short answer is that the blade of a biscuit joiner cuts a semicircle into a piece of wood, and you apply that cut to two different pieces of wood, and then you use this small wooden biscuit that fits into those cuts to join the two pieces of wood together. When would you use a biscuit joiner? Also a great question. In most cases, you would use it when you were wanting to attach two pieces of wood together side to side, where it wasn't really feasible to use a screw or a nail because the distance was too long. When you take your biscuit joiner out of the box, it will probably be folded up like this. What you do is loosen this screw that sets your angle, and anytime you're going for a straight cut, which is most of the time, you want that to be set at 90. And then you will tighten that. On the same side of the biscuit joiner towards the back is the knob where you adjust for the size of biscuit that you're using. Biscuits come in three common sizes: 0, 10, and 20. You can tell by the stamping that this biscuit is a number 10, and that means that it is the medium-sized biscuit. All biscuits are the same in thickness, but a number 20 would be larger from side to side and top to bottom, and a 0 would be smaller in both of those dimensions. The 10 on this knob is already pointing at this red line, which means that this joiner is set for the number 10, but if I wanted to change it, I would just spin it one way or the other, and you can hear that it kind of clicks into place at each of those preset spots. For almost all of my straight cuts, I use this medium-sized biscuit, and I have my guide set to 90, so I can just kind of disregard this side once I have it all set up. On the other side of this tool is where you can adjust the depth. I'm about to make a cut in some 5/8 material, so I loosened up my set screw. And then this screw here is how I can adjust it. This is the arrow that is pointing at the depth that you're setting it to. So if I'm about to cut some 5/8 material, I want it right in the center. So I'm going to set it to 5/16. I will just tighten that back up. And that's the basic operation. So now I'm going to show you guys the most common way I use this tool in trim carpentry. These are pieces of plain MDF casing. This flat square look has been pretty trendy for a few years now. If this was the top of a door or a window and I wanted my leg to meet the header, I just have them both cut at 45 degrees and they meet up pretty good. Now, where you get into trouble without a biscuit joiner is drywall is never ever perfect. And that's not any discredit to drywall workers. If you can drywall well, you're amazing. But it's just impossible to avoid tiny little bumps and waves and changes in the flat plane of the wall that will tip your trim one way or the other. So if I tried to nail this on the wall as it was and suck them tight to the drywall, odds are they would end up tipping away from each other, which would create a small crack here where they meet. It might be totally clockable, but there's a better way to do it. Another thing that can happen is there is a little bit of a chance that over time with the house settling, it could crack apart a little bit and create that black line, which is a bigger deal in this MDF casing because it's painted, so black lines pop out a lot more than they do on pretty much anything stained. So here's what we do. First, you have your two angles cut at 45 degrees. Then you find the center point of your material. This material is 3.5 inches wide, so that means my center point is going to be at 1 3/4 inches. So I'll go ahead and get that marked out on each of my pieces. This material is 5/8 thick, so I have my biscuit joiner set to 5/16 of an inch. So this is the bottom of your tool. Right here is where your material goes to cut a biscuit in it, and you'll see right here in the middle there's a groove cut out, so you line that groove up with your pencil line to make your cut. So here's what you need to know when you are ready to make your cut. You want to make sure that your material is held flat to this plane and this plane. So I'm going to use my non-dominant hand to help me hold down this piece to the material, and then I will be pulling the trigger with my dominant hand, and I will push the tool this way. Basic mechanics of the tool: if you're holding your material here, it will create backwards force this way, and that pushes this sleeve back and your blade comes out. Going along with that, it's important to start the biscuit joiner before you push it this way, because you don't want to start the blade while it's already touching material. Like with any other powered cutting tool, you want it to be spinning before it comes in contact with the material. The reason behind that is to get a clean cut. If you start the blade while it's already touching material, it's really likely to grab it and then it'll go kind of wonky, and then that's also a safety concern. You really don't want any unplanned sudden movement when you're working with something this sharp. So I'm making sure that this is nice and flat across the top of my material so that my cut doesn't accidentally go this way or this way, and then I'm starting the tool and then I'm pushing the tool this way to make my cut. That is my notches for my biscuit cut. An integral part of using wooden biscuits as a joining system is wood glue. I always use Titebond too, and that's not sponsored because I'm not fancy yet. What makes wood glue fancy is it's specially formulated to permeate the fibers of the wood. So essentially, when you're using wood glue to connect two pieces of wood, it's like growing them together. You'll know you're using good wood glue if you ever have to take something you put together with it apart. If you're using the good stuff, the wood around the joint will break instead of the actual joint itself, where the wood glue has kind of grown everything together. So, to connect our biscuits, you'll put some glue in your first cut, put your biscuit in, and then put glue all along this side of the cut and over top of the biscuit. And then you push your two pieces together. Wood glue is not an instant samurai hold, so I can't just like pick it up and swing it around and prove to you that this is an amazing joining system. For this wood glue in particular, you're supposed to leave it completely alone for half an hour, and you're not supposed to put any stress on the joint for 24 hours. But what we've done for this joint is keep it nice and smooth across the front aesthetically, and then also structurally it has like the highest chance of never coming apart. Something I can guarantee you have seen a lot of, but might never have known was probably held together with a biscuit joint, is the kind of style of farmhouse table that has a bunch of long horizontal boards running across the top. These are just 2x4s, but let's pretend that they were big, wide 2x8s. That would be 7¼ inches I was needing to get through before I even got to the other piece. So that's like a 9, 10, 11 inch screw or nail that you're trying to use to attach these side to side. That doesn't even exist for this application because it's just silly. So most of the time how these tabletops are held together is biscuit joints. So you cut out a bunch of biscuit joints along your material, take your biscuits, glue it up, put it together, let it dry, and then you have a very strong bond between these two pieces that would otherwise be really hard to connect. Just some quick thoughts of any of you tool nerds out there that are considering getting your very own biscuit joiner. Again, clearly not sponsored, but the best one that I have ever worked with is the Dewalt. At the beginning of this year, I was working on a custom foam mantle, and I didn't own a biscuit joiner, but I couldn't think of a way to connect a certain part of the project without one. Now that I'm a stay-at-home mom, I don't have access to all the tools at my old job, so I took myself to Home Depot and I tried their house brand. I did actually use it for that project. I could just tell right away that it was not going to work out for me. Like I showed you guys earlier, this Dewalt biscuit joiner has separate knobs to adjust the depth and the angle. And on the rigid machine, there was one knob that loosened up both. So anytime I was trying to change the depth, I had to hold the angle very specifically and then try to move the depth and then try to hold it all together while I got it screwed in, and it was just kind of ridiculous. So while once it was all set up, the tool did exactly what it's supposed to, trying to get it set up to do what it was supposed to was kind of crazy. Having said that, the rigid brand was cheaper. I think it was just south of $100. That is like $60 cheaper than this guy. So if a little extra hassle every time you need to change the settings is worth that price difference, I would say go for it, because once it was set up, it did do what it was supposed to. Another note, if you're considering buying, price match. Both Lowe's and Home Depot carry this biscuit joiner, but in my area, none of the Home Depots had this in stock. and when I finally bought it, I needed it the next morning for the side job that those scrap pieces of casing I just showed you came from. Online, Home Depot had theirs priced at $156, and Lowe's it listed at $196. So that was the exact same tool, exact same model number for $50 more at the place that actually had it. I just asked and they said, yeah, as long as it was the same model number. That's key. It does have to be the same model number. You can't expect them to price match a completely different tool, but you identify tools by their model number, and if it's the same model number, it's the same tool. That's how I was able to save $50 when I went to buy this, which is a big deal for us and most other people. So here's the deal today. Other than inspiring you lovely people to buy expensive power tools, of course. This is an item that my oldest sister and I have been selling at our craft fairs recently. It's a reclaimed wood block cut square out of a 2x6, so it's 5.5 by 5.5, with one of my sister's watercolors attached to the front. Some of you guys have probably heard me say in a couple other of my videos that I get a lot of my reclaimed material at a local fencing company, and 2x6s are not a common framing member in fencing. I haven't been able to find any the last couple of times that I've gone to look through their trash pile. Here is my solution for now. The place is lousy with 2x4s, but we think that a square 3.5 by 3.5 inch block might be a little small. So what I'm going to do is rip a couple of 2x4s down to 2 3/4 inches wide, and then I'm going to cut them into 5.5 inch sections, and then I'm going to take 2 of each of those sections and I'm going to biscuit joint them together. So all of that is going to do is just wind me up with a block this size. Depending on the stage of life you find yourself in, it might feel a little silly, but one thing about having more time than money and trying to work with the materials that you have is sometimes you put a little extra time and effort in instead of going out and buying something. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to buy reclaimed material, but it's expensive. And that, my broke friends, is a DIY 2x6. That's the video for today, guys. I hope it was informative or at least entertaining. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, please take a minute to hit that like button. If you want to see more, subscribe.